Hello everyone, Christy Giannoni back once again with my multimedia discussion. We are in week 4 of our MPA 510 History and Theory. This presentation is going to focus on 3 articles from Waldo, McGregor, and Lindblom. So first off, I took a look at Dwight Waldo, the article entitled The Administrative State Conclusion. And on page 139 on the right-hand column, second paragraph down, you'll see that he talks about what will influence the future of administration. So not just the economic, political, and social events, but there's other ideas that will, the movements and personalities that may impinge on administrative thinking. And so this related back to scientific management, again, Frederick Taylor, something that we've learned about and heard about in these last couple weeks. And I think that this is really relatable to present day and some of the different ways that people try to come in and not only quantify but qualify the way that the administration is run. So a specific example that I can think about is we hired a new manager in a specific department within my agency, and he tried to implement lean training, which is a certification program that teaches the individuals who are taking it a set of tools and techniques that can improve production processes and eliminate defects. So it's another way of trying to make the process of administration more efficient. So I thought this was interesting that there's not only going to be these other elements that are always going to be consistent, like economic, political, social events, but there's always going to be different movements and personalities that are going to try to come in and make the organization more efficient. And I think it really depends on the leaders of the administration. Next up, I took a look at Douglas McGregor and the human side of enterprise. Specifically, you can find on page 159 under the section of physiological needs. I found this topic to be really interesting, that he talks about when the worker eats regularly and is adequately satisfied, the hunger ceases to be an important motivation. So for anyone who might be familiar with a modern day leadership researcher by the name of Brene Brown, she actually has a recent podcast on leadership that talks about the beginning worker. It was all about muscle. And then after that, it was all about knowledge. And the future of motivating workers is going to be about heart. And so I found this interesting physiological needs section because it talks about that, when you have a worker that might feel that their basic needs are met by compensation, by benefits, that not only that they can provide for, their family in a monetary way, but in the benefits need, kind of what comes next. And I think that's where good leaders in an organization step in, and they can meet those next needs of, succession planning. How can we stimulate your mind? How can we get you prepared for the next step in your career? And so I thought that was kind of interesting in how that the next set of leadership skills and management can be met when those basic physiological needs are met. And I think in this day and age and the modern era, that's something that has to be analyzed of kind of what are those new needs that are needing to be met by the modern day worker. Next up, I took a look at Charles Lindblom and the science of muddling through, specifically on page 168 under the test of good policy. On the right-hand column, the second paragraph down, you'll see a quote that talks about agreement on policy thus becomes the only practical test of the policy's correctness. And I related that to an agency that I would work for, basically a town or a city that has a council. So in the lecture this week, we learned the political continuum and basically what side that individuals can lean on. And so I think when you have a governing body like a city council where there's 5 members, you can often find that there can be a consensus of leaning a certain way politically. And so as they're voting on something, you can see that if they're just in agreement, that policy becomes the practical test of correctness. And what I thought of is that's the responsibility of the leaders within the organization when they're presenting this information in a public forum like a council meeting. So for example, our city treasurer, finance director is tasked with presenting the city's budget in a way that the public can understand, that they can kind of see what we're presenting. And so they have a good idea of what is being presented, what the ideas are, what that budgetary impact is going to be, and then see the way that the city council votes. But I thought this was something that was still really relatable today for like a governing body, and depending on how they can all kind of be swayed politically, that can affect the way that the policy's correctness can be interpreted in a city agency. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that everyone has a safe and healthy Memorial Day weekend.